Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Clutch Talk podcast /YouTube/We Do It All. As always, I'm your host, John. Very happy to be here. My boy Jay Hiz over here in the six. How you doing, my dog?
Doing great, bro. Got a fresh mic. I'm feeling myself, man. But hey, we got another great guest, the 2010 Connecticut Gatorade Player of the Year, cemented player in NCAA history, Yale history, Brandon Sherrod. Welcome to Clutch Talk, my guy. How you doing, man?
Appreciate y'all having me, man. I'm good. Let's get right to it.
Man, sure. Exactly, man. Exactly like how Justin said, man. We got a accomplished guest, man, on the show today, Brandon. And Brandon, see, I like the way Brandon, he said, let's get straight to it. So I love it, man. Let's get straight to it. No delays, man. So for all the family out there, hope you guys enjoyed. But Brandon, where we always start, man, is the beginning, where it all started. We know you were born in Bridgeport, Connecticut, man. But what I want to know is who put that ball in your hands and at what age?
Yeah, so I guess unlike a lot of dudes who have been in the position that I'm in or who are in the position that I'm in, I started playing when I was 14. So I hadn't played basketball. I played some baseball. I was actually a pretty good baseball player. Played soccer for a bit. And then when I got to high school, my freshman year, some of the guys on my team, some of the freshmen asked me to try out because I was tall. I was about like 6'2". But I guess the only issue is that I was like 315 pounds. So I was really overweight. Had no understanding of the game, how to play, how to shoot, how to score. I didn't know anything. So I guess it really just happened by chance and having some friends that wanted me to kind of try out the game, and then it ended up turning into something that I've been doing for the last few years and ended up being a job.
Okay. I'll say that's a really unique story, man. Of everyone that we've had, they've always like, man, yeah, we were playing on a little Tykes hoop or this or that, yeah. But man, for you to start at that late of an age and for you to be a professional basketball player, man, that's big props and big shout out to you, man. But so we move forward and you get to high school. You end up going to Stratford High School in Connecticut. So tell us a little bit about how your high school basketball experience was. We know, like how Justin said, you ended up being a 2007 Gatorade Player of the Year. Yeah. Talk to us about how that was and how that came about.
Yeah, man. So when I got to Stratford High, we had a little bit of success, but they had never won a state championship. I think they had won a couple of SWC championships, and my coach was like a really tough coach. I remember like coming in freshman year, and I only played freshman in JV. I think I had like the last varsity jersey my freshman year. And he was just like yelling at dudes and trying to get guys to go harder. And I'm sitting here intimidated as a freshman, like, am I ever going to make it onto the court? Is this for me? Is this coach for me? Is the situation for me? And so like after that first year, I was like 315 pounds, and then I lost 100 pounds going into my sophomore year, and then ended up starting varsity. And then that year we like started off kind of rough, and then we went on like a 16-game win streak to end the season and won a state championship my sophomore year. And that was the first time we had ever done that in the school's history. The people were really, really feeling us. And then after that, it was like my team. So it was like me and another guy, Russell Payton at the time. And we were two of the stars of the team. In my junior year, we went undefeated in the regular season, and then ran into Jordan Williams, who was like really big at Torrington back in the day, lost them in the state quarterfinals. And then again, my senior year came back again, and we went undefeated and won everything. So I think it was just like a testament to perseverance. Again, like chance. I'm a believer. I'm a Christian, so I think God had a big role in all the things that we got to accomplish, and we wouldn't have been able to do it without him. But like also like a lot of hard work and dedication. Like we didn't have any indoor courts to play on. We didn't have any trainers to work with. It was really just like the guys on my team saying, hey, like, let's get together during the summertime. Let's get together, whenever we can after school. Let's make sure we're training and running and staying in shape. So once the season comes, we know exactly what time it is and what we're trying to accomplish. I think that helped me individually as a player shine because we're winning, and then also collectively, getting to the championships.
Man, Brandon, I gotta rewind. So you said you lost 115 pounds. That's like unbelievable. I think that I just have to ask you more about that, especially at a young age. You say you started playing basketball, you came into your high school just at 14, right? What was that process like of of losing all that weight, like dieting, what effort? And you said, and even the part you mentioned, you had no trainers, your team had no trainers, and all of that, those resources available to you. What went into that? What was that process like, man?
Yeah, I think like, when I started playing, I really was just trying to get better, or just trying to knock out like some of these like really simple tasks, like making a layup consistently, or like catching the ball, or like being able to run up and down the court without running out of breath, or and then eventually like being able to win games. I never really had this focus on like being like the best player or trying to be like a star. It was really trying to stack up the little wins. And I think that kind of work ethic and approach really helped me. I mean, losing the weight was like incredible. I was borderline asthmatic, and then lost all that weight. All those symptoms went away. So like for my overall physical health, it was incredible. And then athletically too, once I shed off that weight, I was able to like jump and move, and I had stamina. So like all that contributed to it. I think what's so important, and I think I'm sure some of the guys who have come on the show have talked about just how important having good teammates are. And there were so many moments where I thought I was going to quit, or the game wasn't for me, or people were saying like, this guy actually sucks. And I really tried to take that with a grain of salt, but also had teammates in my ear who were really encouraging and helped me kind of get through those difficult times. I think on top of that too, like as a kid, when you're overweight or obese, and I have like a real soft spot for kids that I see. I'm in the basketball court and just in general. It's really difficult to navigate like your weight, because you don't have a lot of friends. You can get bullied. You might not have a lot of self-confidence. And so I was pretty like timid. My idea was just like, let me keep my head down and work, and hopefully get to, kind of have a piece of what all these other dudes who are on my team have, and some of the varsity guys had. So I think that approach, and not having a trainer, you just relied on those who came before you and what your coaches were saying. So I was like a really good listener on top of that. So my game kind of translated into kind of like what my coaches molded me into, as opposed to me taking autonomy kind of over my game, which happened later on in my career once I started to like, be professional and play at the Division I level. So it was all kind of like a mix of discovery and trial and error, and really trying to figure it out.
Man, I mean, you talk about, you talk about work, and you talk about, putting your head down and continue to work. And that's exactly what you did, man. Because by your senior year, you averaged 16 points per game, 14 rebounds, which is berserk, six blocks per game, which is also crazy. A two-time state champion, like how we mentioned at the top of the pod, a 2010 Gatorade Player of the Year. But what I want to ask you real quick, Brandon, is like, how does that even come about, right? Because like 99% of the world doesn't even know how you, like, does somebody call you? Like, do you got to enter your name somewhere? How does that even happen?
Yeah. So I guess with the Gatorade State Player of the Year, it's like a combination of on the court skill, and then like extracurricular skill, how you serve your community. And I was involved with a lot of different groups while I was on campus. When I was in high school, and I was also part of like the choir. I was the lead in my school play for 3 years. So I was like very much involved in the arts, starting an a cappella group at Stratford High. So my coach, I think, entered my name based on all those things that I was doing, and thought I'd be a good candidate. And I still remember when he called me, I was at a Starbucks right next to the school. And my coach was like, "Hey, how you doing?" I'm like, "Hey, what's up, coach? Like, is something wrong?" He's like, "No, I just want to let you know, like, you're the Gatorade Player of the Year." And I was like, "That's dope," like but I wasn't expecting that at all, So again, I think there's goals that you work towards, but one thing that I do know for sure, and something I really believe in, is that the work shows up for itself. And if you put in that time and effort, you may get rewarded for it, and you may not with like a personal accolade. But when you do, like, it's just a result of that humility and hard work and patience. So yeah, it was a crazy situation to get that award, and also first time that a basketball player got in that in my school's history. So just really exciting.
Man, absolutely. That's honestly super cool to hear. And we definitely are going to get into the a cappella and your singing and all of that later on, man. But so after that extremely successful high school career, doing all kind of accomplishments, you decide to go to Yale, right? So talk to us a little bit about how your recruitment process was. What made you choose that school over any others, and just talk to us about how that was.
Yeah, I actually didn't want to go to Yale. Like I don't think a lot of people know that. Like I talk about how important that experience has been for my life and what an amazing opportunity it was. And it was awesome. But before that, I had no desire to go there, bro. I was like, I want to go to Georgetown really bad. And my junior year, during the time, you only had like the live period in July. And we had these camps like Hoop Mountain. And I think there was like, there's another like Hoop Hall event. And I got hurt. So I couldn't even play in front of all these teams. I'd been prepping all summer. I was in good shape. And in my head, I was like, Georgetown or bust, Georgetown or bust. And Yale had actually come to visit me at Stratford High and said that they wanted to recruit me, but they thought I should go to a prep school for a year to kind of prepare myself for like the academic rigor and also the like the cultural differences that you would find at a place like Yale. You know, you're finding folks from all over the world, folks whose families come from a lot of money. I'm a Black kid from Bridgeport. There are a lot of people who look like me or sound like me or dress like me in a space like that. And so I ended up going to prep school Choate for a year. And before I went to the prep school, I was like, do I have to commit to you guys before I go? They were like, no, you don't, but we would obviously love to have you, you know, if you try to make that decision. And went through the recruiting process, got a bunch of offers from schools. Had this one coach, Adam Finkelstein, who was, you know, kind of the head of the New England Recruiting Report, then ended up being ESPN for scouting services. Now he's with 247 Sports. So he was like really big on that. We're having workouts and 3 people and coaches were coming getting offers. So day after my birthday, I ended up committing because that coach, Adam Finkelstein, was like, look, man, I don't know how many times you have to go to these unofficial visits or talking to Coach Jones or talking to Yale, but this is one of those opportunities that you may not ever get in your life, and it may be life changing. I wanted to be mayor of my city. He was like, you want to go to politics? Yale's the spot for that. You want to do music? Yale's the spot for that. You want to be able to do all the extracurriculars and have your name kind of marked and etched into the legacy of what Yale is all about, then you should be there. And so after having that conversation with him in the dining room, I was like, all right, bet. So let's go. Thinking only about basketball too, not really thinking enough about what it actually meant to be in a university like that. So that's kind of how it all came about. My coaches were really cool. Coach Jones was amazing. Coach Kingsley, my guy, he's the one who kind of recruited me. He's a Connecticut guy who's an assistant at Yale. That's why I made the decision at the end of the day, just for all the things that it could provide me.
Absolutely, man. And honestly, it just shows a ridiculous amount of like a ridiculous amount of understanding and maturity at such a young age to be able to not only just think about just basketball, but also what do you want to do after basketball when the ball stops dribbling and all of that. But Jay, go ahead. What's up, my brother?
Yeah, no, I was gonna ask you, Brandon. So, I mean, like you said, being from where you are in Connecticut, going to Yale, man, what was that, an Ivy League school? You know, I don't know to that point in your life if you knew, but beyond that conversation, what it meant to go to Ivy League, because a lot of people who aren't exposed to that may not have that opportunity. But I mean, me, I hear Yale, like, man, that's Yale, right? You hear the Princeton, Ivy League schools. But what was that like? You set foot on campus day one, in that totally new environment for you, an Ivy League school. What was that like?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I don't think I appreciated how crazy of an opportunity it was until like later on in my time there. But when I first arrived, I was just really struck by like the tradition and the legacy and the history and how important that was for the university and how important they felt it was to kind of share that with us as freshmen. So we had like a freshman dinner when we first got there, kind of as a welcome. And, you know, they were serving us really nice food and like these nice cutlery in China, had people serving us. They're telling us a notable alumni who have gone to the university. I'm sitting there looking at like the actual building that we're in and how hearing the history of how old it was and who donated money to like make it happen and build it. And then also just trying to understand that there were people from New Haven that I knew, because Yale's right there. Yale's in New Haven. There were people in New Haven that I knew who I never set foot on Yale's campus. And I ended up being like the bridge for those people to be able to like experience it just as fully as I was able to. And for me, that was like really important, because I don't think a lot of people at the university really thought about engaging with the community actively. Since I was from there, it made it even more special. But yeah, I would probably say that in the beginning, just like the legacy and all that that provides you, and also like the networking and the type of folks that come into contact with you, and then the academics as well. Like we had professors who would literally assign you their books. Like, it wasn't like, okay, go home and do the reading, right? It's like, go home and do the reading and make sure you do it, because that's my book that you're reading. So I thought that was really cool too. Just a crazy experience in general.
Man, that's a hard one, because that you can't even like BS that. You know what I'm saying?
No.
Like
they wrote it.
They wrote it.
They wrote it.
Wow.
That's a tough one. I'm not gonna lie. Oh man, but you got through it and you got that degree. So man, that's more hats off to you. But so you're freshman year, right? You're the only freshman to appear in all 29 games. You're the winner of the John Cobb Award, which is the Yale Rookie of the Year. But walk us through your freshman year, like when you stepped on campus, like not only being not starstruck, but like seeing so many different things that you've never seen in your life, but also like that adjustment to now you're playing a college level to everywhere. Right. Everyone's good. There's no scrubs on the team.
No, for sure. Yeah, I came in really high on myself, and I think really competitive. And what was frustrating was that I thought I was just going to start right away. I'm coming in, I'm like, I'm the Gatorade Player of the Year. And it's still trying to be humble, but also being like, I've worked hard to get here, and I feel like I deserve a chance to showcase my ability and skill. And during the recruiting process, my coaches were really big on, saying I would have a chance to kind of play right away. So I really took that to heart. And I was in every game. I played every game of the year, but it was really frustrating not getting as many minutes as I thought I deserved throughout that time of the year. And so once I realized kind of how things work with getting those minutes, maintaining those minutes, and then the amount of competition that goes on between players on a weekly basis in practice, it just changed my mindset. Then there's the speed of the game. The college game is way faster than it is in high school. It's managing your classwork and the basketball stuff, like trying to get classes done before you go to lift, or making sure you get enough sleep to get up for a test. So that was tough with time management. And then also just like trying to find my niche on the court. Like, was I going to play power forward? Was I going to play center? Was I rebounding the ball enough? Was I paying attention to the coaches' calls on defense or on offense? And was I showing up to things, early enough to showcase that I was deserving of a position on the court? So I never really got satisfied with what I was given at that time, because I felt I always deserved more. But again, with hard work, you might work hard for something, but you may not get exactly what you wish for. So I had to also exert some patience and humble myself, because everybody there was good. We had a really good freshman class as well, who was able to contribute right away.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. And out of all that great freshman class, man, like, you guys have a great year. And then, at the beginning of your sophomore year, you're met with an injury that kept you out, early in your sophomore season. But talk to us about that. I know, I didn't personally play college basketball. Justin did. So, when you have an injury, that's your everything. That's all you're doing right now in life. So how did you deal with that mentally, and how did you get through that?
Yeah, it was a tough injury. I had like a hematoma in my abdomen, which is like a really painful injury. So like I couldn't even laugh. I was like,
damn.
Can't try to laugh how I was breathing. My teammates were making fun of me, trying to make me laugh on purpose. That was tragic. Yeah, that was hard, man, because I had never had a major injury before that. And so I also kind of prided myself on taking care of my body. And then when you get humbled with things like an injury, it's a part of the game. You kind of have to chalk it up to the game. But it did allow me to focus on some other things, both artistically and academically. So I was grateful for that. And then my teammates kind of showed me a lot of love during that period of time. So as difficult as it was, I had a really good support system, and I knew I was going to be back. It wasn't like season ending or career altering, but it was just another wake up call, another understanding that the game can be taken away from you at any time. So appreciate it while you got it, and health is wealth. So that was it.
Nice.
Man, absolutely. So then, the 2014-2015 season, we talked about it earlier. We said we were going to talk about it. That's when you missed that season because you joined. I don't want to mispronounce it. It's called the Yale. What? Can you say the name, please, Brandon?
Yeah, the Whiffenpoofs.
Whiffenpoofs. Yes, there we go. I didn't want to disrespect like that, but the world's oldest and best known college a cappella group, man. Like that, honestly, Brandon, is so cool for the fact that like you're able to put down basketball, something that you love, for another passion that you have. But talk to us about like what went into that decision. Was it hard on you, and about all that? Like, what was going through your mind at the time?
For sure. Yeah. So music's always been my first love. So even when I wasn't playing basketball, before I started playing at 14, like I was in church playing drums, playing piano, singing. So that was always like a big part of my life. And then when I got to college, I wasn't really able to do much extracurricular, stuff because we had basketball. Like I said, that's a very demanding schedule. So I found ways to kind of involve myself in the community during like the off season or preseason. I was playing drums for a couple of little projects that my friends had, sang on a couple of projects too. And I had one friend who was a senior my sophomore year. He had just come back from singing in the Whiffenpoofs, and we were on his rooftop. He had just graduated, and he was like, you know what? Like, you could actually be a part of the group if you audition. Like, I think you're good enough to be a part of the a cappella group. It's like an incredible experience. And so he's describing like, there's this group, you take a year off, you travel around the world, you do a world tour. It's all paid for. You're basically like a professional musician for a year. And it's an incredible, life-changing experience. And when the time came up to audition, I remember seeing the email and I was like, should I even try this out? Because if I get in, then I'm probably going to take the year off. And we're probably going to win the league the next year, because all the guys who came in my freshman year are about to be seniors. And then on top of that, like, I didn't really know, if like taking a year off would be the best decision for me as like an athlete, because you have to think about potentially playing professionally. You have to think about what it means to take a year off academically and then getting back into that, once you're done. So I was trying to weigh all those options. And then I was like, you know what, I'll just try out. I only told my best friend, Hav, I was like, bro, I'm gonna try out for this group. If I get in, bro, I'll let you know. So I go in, it's like a 15-minute audition. You sing a solo, you do some like pitch matching. So they play it on the piano, you sing it back to them. You do like a quartet thing to kind of blend your voice. Then you do like a range test, see how high or low you can sing. So I did that, didn't prepare for it beforehand. Was like, I'm just going to go and see, kind of see what happens. I think I have a good ear. So I was like, I'll figure it out. That was on like a Thursday. On Sunday, I get the call and they're like, hey, just want to let you know, like, you're a part of the group. So I'm like, oh, wow, that's dope. Like, that's again, incredible. Like, I react like, wow, like, awesome. Call my boy Hal. I'm like, bro, I got in. He's like, all right, bet, dog. Like, what does that mean? I was like, well, I'm gonna have to, figure out what I'm gonna do for next year, because I can either decline and say I don't want to join, or, I'm in the group. So, and I'm also thinking in my head, like, what's my coach gonna think if he finds out and I don't have a chance to explain it to him? So I wake up the next day and my coach gives me a call. He's like, I need to see you in my office. And I'm like, all right, bet. Like, that's all he said. I get the Yale daily newspaper. We had like a daily publication, and on like the front page, it says like, Yale basketball player gets into the Whiffenpoofs. I'm like, bruh, I didn't have an idea that it was that big of a deal. And then, my coach, he finds out like that. So I get in the office, he's like, hey, what's really good? Like, what, I heard you're into this group. So what's going on? I was like, coach, I think I'm about to take a year off of school. And he's like, he sits back in his chair, takes a long pause. He's like, can you defer it for a year? And I was like, no, like, I can't. Like, it's like I either take this opportunity now or I just come back and I play. He's like, we would love to have you next year because we're probably going to win the league. I'm like, I understand that. But then I went back to his recruiting pitch when he got me to come to Yale. And he said, Yale affords you with certain opportunities that are once in a lifetime. And you can't. So this opportunity for you to sign with us is once in a lifetime. We'd love to have you. And once I said that, he was like, you know what? God bless you. And it wasn't me quitting the team either. I told him I would come back. I had a plan in my head of how I could kind of train and prepare before coming back. But yeah, it was probably like the weirdest. He says this to this day. It was like the strangest conversation he's ever had with one of his players. It's like a dude coming in and say, hey, I'm leaving the team for a year to sing in an a cappella group. So that's kind of how it all came about. And then it ended up being like this insane experience of just feeling super blessed for an entire year. But weird at the same time.
Yeah, that's a true. I know John and I both know that's definitely the craziest story of like coming back and taking time off and then coming back to the game. But Brandon, I want to fast forward to your senior season, because number one, it's it's memorable to me specifically for one reason. But also because it was a memorable season for yourself. You know, in this season, you made first team All Ivy League, two-time Player of the Week, obviously the best season of your career collegiately, with 15 points per game on 64%. But I gotta before we talk about that season, March 17th, 2016. Why is this day important to me? Because I know for a fact I don't know if I had Yale winning this game, but you go up against the Baylor Bears, right? Big day for you, 12th seed coming in against the Baylor Bears. I'm not gonna lie, I had Baylor winning that game. And what do you guys do? You beat them 79-75, and you had the unique experience of playing in the NCAA tournament. You know, you had 10 points in this game. You guys also went on to win this game. But talk about that whole senior season experience and then all the way up to the NCAA tournament, like a historic run for yourself and Yale, man.
Yeah, man. So when I was in the Whiffenpoofs, the team that I would have been playing on, they were in a playoff with Harvard because they ended up tying. And before the Ivy League, like Ivy Madness, there was no conference like tournament. So you would have to win the regular season and the Ivy League play to go. And so the Ivy League was always like the first team to send somebody to March Madness. So I'm in Florida watching the game, like the playoff game. And it comes down to the last possession. My boy Hobb goes up, shoots a bank shot, rims out. Yale loses. They don't go to the tournament. And so I'm like, I'm kind of beating myself up, being like, yo, if I was there, could I have helped? Would we have finished it out? And when I came back, we had a really, really long talk with all the seniors, all the guys that I guess would have been juniors if I had graduated that original year. And we were like, yeah, we got to win. Like, it wasn't just for us, but also for our coach, who hadn't had an Ivy League championship yet in his long tenured career. It was for the school, who hadn't won anything. I think it was just like 1960. I think it was like 1964 or 1967. So like it was a big deal. So we're going through the season, everything's smooth. Like right before Ivy League play, I'm playing terribly. Like I don't have anything going. We play a D3 game, and I think I missed like 8 shots that were all bunnies. And so I shot like 4 for 12. And then somehow after that, I went on this crazy tear where I was just in a really good rhythm. Ended up getting to the point where I made a bunch of shots in a row, and my team, we were at the top of the Ivy League. So we're rolling around like, okay, this, no one's going to see us. So we get through the Ivy League with a certain level of determination and focus that was like kind of unseen for that squad and for my coaches. And then we got to the tournament. We got Baylor. We actually thought that was the best draw because we were 1 and 2 in the nation in rebounding that year. So we were like, if we could just rebound with these guys, I think we'll be okay. And this dude, Makai Mason, on my team had like a crazy game. He had like 30. Mm-hmm. But everyone else contributed and like figured it out. Plus we were in Providence, which was kind of like a home game. So everything just kind of worked out, man. Again, I'm a firm believer in everything happening for a reason. And like that season was kind of written in stone before it even started. And we just had to kind of like fall in place and do what we needed to do.
Man.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Man, absolutely, man. And and while Justin brings up, that Baylor game, I do think to one NBA player that was on that team, Torian Prince. So I just kind of wanted to ask him, how does it feel to play against somebody like that? And I know he had 28 that game.
Yeah.
He was cold. Torian Prince is cold. And what's funny is like, we're in the game and, they got Torian Prince, they got Rico Gathers, who ended up getting drafted by the Dallas Cowboys, which is like an ox. They had they had some really good players. And towards the end, Torian Prince like took over the game. Like it wasn't like, it wasn't any question about what his skill level was or what he was going to be able to do at the next level. But we had weathered the storm at that point. So we just knew we needed to make a couple of plays and everybody contributed. But he was a killer. I don't think there's any question about that. And also his interview after the game, that interview is to the point, bro. Like I swear, it's like you can never get away from the game, because every year they're like, oh, we gotta replay this iconic Torian Prince interview. You're right. It's like the ball goes up with the rim, grab with 2 hands, and every year it's like, oh, that was my team. So it was like, and that gets sent around to the guys in my group. So again, kind of leaving a legacy. for the other teams that followed, and Yale's had a lot of success, but that was kind of the catalyst for everything that we've been seeing now with just the last few years of them winning championship after championship. And we're still low key the best team in that school's history because we're the only one with the Ivy League tournament or with the NCAA tournament win. So that's another thing we like to talk about with some of the younger guys.
Yeah, that was amazing. That I was actually gonna bring that up. You mentioned Torian Prince in that interview because I always think of it, and then I always think back to that game because he said you rebound, you go up, you grab the ball with two hands. I don't even whatever prompted the dude to ask that question. I don't know. That was so fun. But then you mentioned your game plan about the rebounding. It makes sense because you pounded those guys. You pounded Baylor on the glass like. It was clear that was your your mentality going to that games, but now we got the background story.
That's it.
Man, okay. So while we're talking about your iconic senior season, you also set not only a Yale record, not only an Ivy League record, but an NCAA men's basketball. I don't care what kind of league you in, it don't matter. Brandon got the record, and he holding it for the most consecutive field goals. Just in the NCAA period, which is insane, Brandon. like 30 in a row. I believe you went 8-8 at Brown, then 9-9 at Princeton. So like, talk to me about how are you feeling coming into these games? You're like, man, I can't miss right now.
I was really just vibing. I didn't know that I had made that many shots in a row. I think until maybe like the third or fourth game. Mm-hmm. And a lot of my shots were around the rim, but again, like it's not easy to just like people miss bunnies all the time, right? Mm-hmm. And again, right before that streak, I was missing bunnies too. So when I had that first game against Brown, my coach was like, at the post game, he's like, "Yeah, shout out to Brandon, went 9 for 9 today." I'm like, "Oh, word, that's dope. Okay, cool." And then after the next game, it's like, "Okay, Brandon went like 8 for 8 or 6 for 6 or whatever," and I'm like, "Oh, that's solid." Then we go to the press box. After the game, we won another one, and they're like, "Does anyone know if that's a record?" And I think I had like 24 at like before that last game against Columbia, where I set the record, and it was just cool, man. I can't really even tell you like what the feeling was. I was just coming in like we got to get a win, and I knew what my role. Even everyone had really clearly defined roles, and I just was really playing my part, and the success that we wanted to have. So, but it is wild. Think about because that number even is like a perfectly even number. It wasn't like 29, it wasn't 28, 27 was the record, but it was like 30. Like that was dope. So I was glad that was able to happen, and it was cool to also set the record at home in front of the fans. And I think after we beat Columbia, I think we were like number 1 in the league at that point of the season too. So it was a really, really cool win-win.
Yeah. And I know it's kind of backtracking, but I want to ask you, you mentioned Columbia in these games. A lot of people know the Ivy League for an academic school, like great schools, the elite, top of the country, top of the world for that matter. Talk to us and for those who don't know about the level of competition, because you see every single year a team from the Ivy Leagues either beating like you guys did, or they're taking these top tier ACC best of the year teams to the brink, like down to the wire. So talk about the level of play and what you saw year to year in the Ivy League.
Yeah, people sleep on the Ivy League a lot because they think that if you're smart, you can't hoop. And I find it so funny because I think some of like the smartest dudes I know are hoopers, and like not even guys who are in the Ivy League, but just in general. So there's that part. Then there's like the support from the school. And whether they really support athletics. And for a little while when I was at Yale, like our first couple of years, our president, he didn't even go to like the Harvard-Yale football game, which is like an iconic sort of like historic rivalry game. But like as time went along, you started to see the success of Harvard, and they had won a couple of games in the tournament. And then they started getting like these recruits that were like top 100 recruits, like guys who had offers from like Stanford and Georgetown and Duke, and then ended up going to like Harvard. Like, and obviously it's a win-win situation for them, but the level of play was also a lot higher than people give it credit for. And I think too, because you have guys that dedicate enough time to go to school for 4 years, and they're usually in it for 4 years, you build like a certain rapport. You have a certain level of maturity. and understanding of the game that allows you to beat teams that maybe have a lot of like one and done guys. There's also another level of discipline too. Like once you really know what's going on, the game slows down for you. You start to make decisions based on what you've experienced. So like if you have juniors and seniors on your team, you're probably going to be better prepared than, you know, freshmen and sophomores that you would see on other squads. I think another tough thing about the Ivy League is that they don't offer full scholarships. So like that was also a tough decision for me because I had a bunch of like full ride offers, but I decided to go and I didn't pay very much. It was a lot of like need-based financial aid that I got. But, you know, I think that also deters people from making that decision to go there because there are a lot of, I think if you can get a full scholarship from like a Harvard, Yale, Princeton, you're going, right? Like, I don't think people would pass that up, but that's another decision that forces people to kind of like choose between getting a full ride and or paying a little bit. And yeah, man, I think it's just a natural underappreciation for what kind of effort and time goes into working towards a Division I scholarship. Like these are all Division I schools, which means at some level, like all of these guys have excelled at their own high school or like in their own way. So to think that because you're going to an Ivy League, you're going to be, you know, less competent or have less ability than someone else is like ludicrous to me. So yeah, so I think that's kind of like the vibe and the misconception that I think people have. But the league's been really good, and I think teams get surprised by how good the players are, obviously, and that's why you see all these upsets. I think now it's probably like maybe like it's definitely a top 10 league in the NCAA. So I think that's going to continue as time goes along. You're looking at the guys, like, even at Yale, I've been up to campus seeing some of like the younger guys now. And like those dudes are like way more prepared, way more athletic than like we were coming in. We thought we were like the baddest to ever come in. We thought we were like the fat coming in, you know what I'm saying? But like these dudes now, it's at a totally different level. So I think the level of play is going to continue as guys get more exposed to the opportunities and people get better prepared for like what the future holds, along with getting, you know, a Division I opportunity.
Absolutely, man. And I really love like how you touched on the fact that, you know, it's Division I, and in every episode I mentioned that fact that like less than 2% of every high school athlete plays Division I. So it don't matter where you at. Like you playing Division I, then people that say that are usually just like the little kids, you know what I'm saying, who don't really know much about hoop.
Not for sure. I would even say too, like dudes at Division II and Division III schools, like they're really talented too. Like cats sleep on, you know, you've seen like Duncan Robinson. I'm trying to mention like even the other shooter from Miami right now. Like these guys played at Division III or Division II colleges, and they're in the NBA. Like there are dudes overseas I know have like long careers, and they were D2 or D3. So it's much less about like obviously there might be a drop off in like maybe athleticism or just size at some of these levels, but as far as like skill, like if you're a good player, you're a good player, and that's going to show up regardless of what school you're at.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. So, you know, Brandon, before we get off, you know, your time at Yale, I do got to ask, you know, a question that really kind of like popped up as you were talking about, we were talking about your record. And what's crazy to me is that you mentioned that, you know, in high school, you were trying to get down the basic things like knocking a layup down consistently, like consistently having that left hand, right hand, jump hook, whatever it is. I think it's crazy to see the work that you put in from going to there to now holding the NCAA record for the most made field goals. And like how you mentioned, there were little bunnies inside, but man, like it's hard to even get open at a Division I level. But what I want to know to you is like, was there like a summer of separation, or was there like one thing that you did that really separated you and you had that big leap? I'm also, I know you talk a little bit about being a believer. I'm a big believer too. So I think that time where, you know, that acapella, man, I think God blessed your last year, to be honest, in my opinion. But I mean, like, what was there something that you were doing to have that great season and do that?
Yeah, I think I came back with a great deal of confidence, and I don't think I had that. I was really discouraged, I think, my freshman, sophomore, and even junior year. I remember my sophomore year going into my junior year, I had this like crazy summer, bro, where I was lifting. I had a diet. I like crazy diet. I like a food log. I really lean, and I was ready to go. Like in my head, I was like, this is the time where I showcase I'm the best player in the league and the best player on my team. And obviously through, you know, injuries and things not going the way that I had planned. It didn't work out. But that year where I took off, I think I had a great confidence coming in. Like I was more mature. I understood what it was like to, take time away from the game. I understood what the preparation was going to look like for me to actually come in and contribute. I knew exactly what my role was. I knew exactly what our purpose was and goal was as a team. There was no wavering in that. And then I gave myself, I think, a little bit of grace to just like go play and be free. And again, similar situation before the Ivy League play started, a little discouraged, but just found a way to have a little bit more confidence and faith and ended up working out. But yeah, I think it was an example of everything coming to fruition, after starting off like real humble with like not being able to play at all, like not knowing anything, and then getting to a point where I'm, finishing around the rim with ease and everything kind of starting to fall in place. So yeah, just a full circle moment, to say the least.
Yeah, that's truly amazing. And from, you think of a guy who you said was, you were kind of overweight from your freshman year of high school, and then almost 8 years later, or however, probably 8 years later, you're getting 22 against Duke in the NCAA tournament. That's an unbelievable, journey to that, right? I'm sure all along you didn't. It's hard in the moment to understand the journey, but the journey is just as important as the destination. But that's an incredible destination, man. So congrats to you on that accomplishment, from the start to the end, man. That's unbelievable. But what I want to ask you is the next step, right? Italian 2 professionally with Rosetta, your first year. What was that like from having 22 in the NCAA tournament all the way to your first game with Rosetta in the Italian Serie B league?
Yeah, so essentially, once I was done playing, I knew I wanted to play overseas. I had an opportunity to run for like state senate. I said no because I was like, I dedicate myself to public service at this time. I was like, I want to pursue this as I can while I'm still able-bodied and I still have an opportunity to do it. So I ended up signing with like one agent. And then I was up at 7 a.m. every day with my assistant coach, Coach Anthony Goins. He's at BC now, but that's my guy. So shout out Coach Goins if you're listening to this. We were up every day and like working on pro stuff. Like it was like no longer this game of, okay, I have to find something that fits into the scheme collegiately or like something that fits into our system. It's like, nah, we're working on going to get a bucket, different skills, post up stuff, turnarounds, fadeaways, and like repping stuff out to like 25. Make 25 of this shot. Move on and make 25 of this shot. Or we're gonna, today we're gonna just work on ball handling so you're a little bit more fluid on the court. And so I think that allowed me to kind of have a different experience and approach to the game that I hadn't had when I was in college. But I love the grind. So it was like, this is what I need to do now to be the best and to get paid to play the game. So I end up signing with that first agent, go to a showcase in Vegas. I do well in that showcase. I'm, top 5 in that showcase, like made the first team or whatever, thinking I'm going to have an opportunity from that. No opportunity. So now I'm like, all right, bet. Like, my friends are getting signed. My teammates are getting signed. I'm like, is this for, should I be looking for another opportunity? Ended up doing a little stint with Fellowship of Christian Athletes. There was a guy who was doing like some public speaking, William Green. I was on tour with him, kind of helping him out, sharing a little bit of my story. Still working out. No opportunity. A different agent who actually reached out to me after the Ivy League championship. Met my family, had been really kind, and my current agent now, Matt Sland, signed with him. He was like, you know what? Like it's late in the game now. It's August or late July. Like, I can see what I can do. I'm still grinding through August. Now it's September. Now I'm like, I might just be doing this Fellowship of Christian Athletes thing for the rest of, for my career for the time being, and then figuring out a job from there. October, he hits me. He's like, hey, I got an opportunity in Italy. I think we got to move on this. So tells me about Rosetto, where it is in Italy. Italy A2 is a great league. A lot of guys they don't start there. They kind of like work their way through other leagues around Europe or in South America or even in like Eastern Europe, a little bit tougher places. Rosetto's right on the beach, great food, was a rookie contract, but all my meals were comped. I had a car, I had an apartment. I was like, oh, wow, this is dope. And it was more than I was making with Fellowship of Christian Athletes too. So I was like, all right, this is really ideal. So end up getting there. First game I play, I only play 3 minutes. And I'm like, what is this about? Like, I'm an American. You have 2 Americans, and I don't understand why I'm not on the court. So my coach is like, you didn't really know the plays. You just got here, blah, blah, blah. So I'm thinking it was a game. And then from there, I just, again, figured it out. Like, second game, I had a good game. We got a win. That was really important. And then from there, I just try to showcase my ability. Had a great rookie, Adam Smith, who is now like playing in Israel top division, one of my guys. So it was good to kind of go through that experience with him for the first year. But yeah, again, patience, hard work, perseverance, and just changing the mindset as to what it takes to be a professional, as opposed to what it took for me to be, a Division I basketball player.
Yeah, that's an interesting background story. You talked about from the first year average, or from the first game, you had three minutes because like you said, you were able to figure it out. You finished the year averaging 13 a game, close to a double with 9 rebounds. But what was that adjustment? I know you briefly touched on. Actually, it sounds like a real nice setup actually on the beach and had a car and all that. But what was it like? Like I know it wasn't just all pretty. I know there might have been a few different things. Maybe if it wasn't like struggles, just being overseas for the first time, I think, and being in a new environment. What was the adjustment like, if anything, you had to make when you're over there for the first time in Italy and professionally?
Well, yeah, I think right. So again, like it's no longer just like, it's not for fun anymore, right? Like it's like, this is people's careers. So I think I had to really understand that when I first arrived, because I could no longer look at the game as something like, it is still a game, but it's also like a business. And I've started to understand more and more of how the business of overseas basketball works. But when I first arrived, it was like, all right, like I have to perform well enough for them to think that I can belong here. Like they signed me to a rookie deal, not that much money. If I don't play that well, I'm probably going to get cut. Right. So, and then also I'm competitive. So I'm like, I also want to look, I want to look good for myself. It's not, you know what I mean? And obviously I want to help my team win games. So there was that adjustment. The language barrier was hard. I spoke a little bit of Spanish before I went to Italy, but then Italian's just not Spanish. So I was understanding to an extent, like what people were saying, but I couldn't respond. And I like to talk. So I remember I was out at the time, like also talking to girls. I was talking to a girl on Google Translate one time at the club, and I was like, bro, this ain't it. Like, I'm saying, like, you like the language barrier, like things get lost in translation. You literally can't communicate with anyone. People don't really speak English that much in Italy, so that was really difficult. And then still trying to find I think a work-life balance that was conducive for what I need. So I do love basketball and I love the game, but also know that I need other outlets and things that I can dedicate my time and energy to. And so early on, that was also kind of tough because they also thought, I was just here to play. And people overseas have an idea of what American athletes are like, whether that's the stereotypical, like they only eat McDonald's or fast food. They have, like, one of my teammates once said, he asked me if I had any baby mamas. And I was like, what? And he was like, do you have a baby mama? He was like, I thought that like the black guys always had, baby mamas. And I was like, bro, that is just, so the ignorance and understanding how to respond to that. So like racially also as an African-American man being in that space, and then looking at the way that Italians treat African immigrants that have come to the country, and like that difference between them loving me, an African-American man, but then disliking the African folks, like that was also kind of tough to adjust to. So like all of those things combined kind of created this environment that I was like really trying to navigate and figure out to the best of my ability. But it's really, really hard because I had no, context. I had no references from Connecticut, at least, that I could talk to really understand like what it would be like being over there and how to like adjust fully and quickly, because that's what you need to do.
Yeah, that's an interesting. And that's why I wanted to ask, because a lot of the things you see, you never be exposed to that, right? Like you're an
Right.
American player or you're from North America. You wouldn't be exposed to that. So that's interesting to hear that.
Yeah.
And kind of the perceptions that people over there have too. That's interesting to hear that. But I want to ask about the next season because it's crazy seeing when I look statistically at your progression. I know stats, and we always say that stats don't always tell the whole story, but production in terms of what you're doing on the floor does show as well in statistics in some capacity. As well as I know if it's not just a European thing, but they do show efficiency. That's one of the
Right.
measurement
Yeah.
statistics they use out there. And it's consistently rose throughout your career. But the next year, I might butcher his name, but Giavovo Scafafi, your next year you averaged
Javola Scafati.
Scafati, right.
Yeah.
That's Italian. That's
Yeah, it's
very
tough.
Italian,
It's tough, man. Yeah, it's not easy. I already know.
Right. You got it down though, but but my point is saying you average a double there, 15 and 10, man. So best year of your career, what we could find in terms of your statistics. But what was that year? What changed? What clicked? It's now your second year professionally, second year in Italy. What was that year like for you?
Yeah, I think I knew what it took to like really be successful, and then I was also very hungry. Like I didn't think that the contract that I had for this second team was one that I deserved based on how I improved and showed my play towards like the back half of my rookie year. And so going into this one, so I remember like my Italian agent was like, he had to fight with the president to sign me. And I was like what? Like he had to fight with the president to think that I was like, good enough to play. And I was like, all right, bet I'm going to come in and try to kill it. So, again, I remember just like the preseason and having like really good preseason games and my agent getting calls saying they're thinking of cutting me. And I'm like, for like how, so just again, the adversity piece, but like how you respond to adversity is really the true test of your character. That really shows who you are. So when I got to Scafati started playing in the regular season, I would again just head down trying to work. And with the team that I had and the trust that my coach kind of put in me gradually, I had a lot of opportunity to kind of showcase my game. So like getting to a double-double wasn't that difficult because of my motor, how in shape I was, and my athleticism and the way that I prepared before the season started. So it got to a point where it was like, all right, cool. Like I have to play 30 minutes of this game. Like that's light, like this, the other opponent that's in front of me, he could probably play like a good, 20 to 25. And then he's going to have a sub come in. But if I'm going to have the ball during all those periods of time and I'm playing a sub, like it's over. My efficiency rating, I am like the actual stats that I had. So I could have like a stat line of like 20 and 10, but my efficiency rating might be like 15, which is really that efficient. If you're looking at how you would add up all, so your rating is basically all of the good things that you've done, and it's the bad things that you've done on the court, so like missed shots or turnovers or your plus minus, that kind of stuff. So once I started to understand that portion of the game too, I was more strategic, and a little bit more cerebral in my decision making. And I think that kind of all, helped me be a better player on the court and be a better teammate. And we won more games as well.
Man, absolutely. And I, as you were talking about, your coach thinking about cutting you, or the president of the team thinking about cutting you, and your agent got to really fight for you, and you use that as some motivation and some fuel. I do think back to earlier you were talking about when you had to struggle a little bit to get off in high school as far as like playing and all that. Did you keep that in the back of your mind? Because I know a lot of people hold on to things like that so they can just consistently motivate them. Or when you got to pros or college, did you already just let that go?
Yeah, I had been there before. Like I already knew what that looked like. And I think when you already have experience in like in those sorts of areas, or with like the struggle or adversity, it makes it a lot easier to like fight through, and then understanding what the end goal is too. Like it's like it's again kind of like I've come too far from all the things that I've seen over the course of my career to get to this point and just give up. So, and that's what motivates me and drives me now with the kind of things that I do in the off season to prepare. It's like, I know what I want. I know no one else is doing what I'm doing on a consistent basis. So like, let's just go get it.
Man. So in terms of day to day, like enlighten us on that in terms of your day to day overseas, and I guess even comparably to what it was like at Yale, because I'm interested to know the difference between the two, because I know those were completely different. You know, you had to manage school and everything at Yale, one of the best institutions in the world. But what was that like comparatively from university and then your days in Italy and professionally as well?
Yeah. Well, I think in university, the hardest thing is like getting enough sleep and being able to manage the academic and athletic portion of your day. So like we couldn't take any classes after 4 p.m. And we also had to keep in mind that if you took a class that was in the morning, you would have to be like up every day. So in my mind, I was like, okay, I'm gonna take a class that's somewhere between 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. because at least I can sleep in to like 9 or 9:30 if I need to, or sneak in a lift if I have to schedule it before my class. So that schedule and college is really, really difficult and hard. And then also just like I think the mental piece that's required when you're in college of just like having to be focused in class and like being engaged, and also having to go to like section and like going to things when you're really tired. You don't really have time to listen to your body, or focus on like your diet. Like you have other things that are just as important aside from basketball. So then when you're going overseas, it's like you have a lot more time. Like only things that you have to do really are practice and games. And so the schedule would probably be like on a Tuesday, because we would play on Sunday. Monday would be off. On a Tuesday, we'd have a lift in the morning and then some shooting. Then we would go home. And then later on in the evening, we would have a practice. On Wednesday, we would have like one or two. We have like one practice again in the evening. Thursday, we would do the same thing. In the afternoon, it'd be lift and practice. And then Friday, another one practice. And Saturday would be like just a quick shoot around. And then we play the game on Sunday. So like having only one game a week in Italy was also helpful because you really got into a routine early on, as opposed to like we have a game on Thursday in this country, so we have to fly out and we have to also make sure we recover and like do all the other things. So you're obviously more responsible for yourself because it really is up to you to get yourself going and motivated, and you have to show up on time for practices and games. But like not having the academic piece, I think was like pretty helpful, and just having like a really standard schedule you can just follow consistency, as opposed to like I have an exam this week, or I have a test, or I have a section where I have to go to in the evening, or I have to meet up with this person for this meeting. So it was really more important when I got over there.
Man, and so Brandon, we touched on your early times, starting basketball at 14. We touched on your time at Yale and the multiple accomplishments you have there. You touched on your pro time, but that's not all you do. You are more than just basketball. You much more, like how you said, singing was your first passion. Being in the choir, the drums. I think that's really cool. So what I want to know about is off the court. I've seen on your Instagram that you got a music label. That is so dope, man. Like you on your Puff Daddy, Birdman, like really running it. I think that's super cool. So talk to us about how does that even come about? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So he's the president of Spinach Records, and we ended up linking up. This is like right after my second year playing, but he's another Connecticut guy. And Brad had some issues with his mental health. And we were kind of talking about, are athletes and artists supported when they're working, or like when they experience burnout? Do they have resources or even like a business model that surrounds them from their label that says, hey, like we want to make sure that your mental health is prioritized and we can find ways to make sure you're living holistically. And so when Brad posited that idea, I was like, you know what, I would love to help spearhead this movement. With Spinach Records, we've accumulated a number of artists and creatives who are going through mental health pilots on a consistent basis that kind of track their progress or regression over time, and asking questions as simple as on a scale of 1 to 5, how well have you slept in the last week? Or 1 to 5. How anxious are you right now? How do you combat your anxiety? What do you feel when you're anxious? Who are the people that you reach out to when you're having these feelings of doubt? How can we be more supportive for you as a label? And then also, how can we provide you with mental health professionals, or at least a database of people that you can then reach out to and choose for yourself? What we found is that when you prioritize the artist's mental health, their productivity and the music that they actually put out is better. And they feel more happy and more fulfilled in what they're doing. And then as an athlete, for me, I see a lot of people who experience burnout on a consistent basis, or just, feelings of self-doubt. These are some of the things that I've dealt with as well. And so making sure you have a solid team around you is extremely important, and I think paramount to your success. So that's kind of how that started. We're in the stages of trying to raise some money, and I think also trying to convince labels that this is something that their artists absolutely need, aside from just like us doing it on an independent level. So that's been really, really fun.
Man, I just like with the acapella group earlier, Brandon, I'll say like that. We've had a lot of players on, pro hoopers, G League, D1. None has a story like that. None are like so of doing so many things in their extracurricular, man. So that's just, hats off to you to even find the time, find the energy to be able to do all that, and as we start to wrap up here, Brandon, I do want to ask, what's next? We know you got a lot in your bag. We know you sing. We heard you talking about state senate, which is crazy. But what's next for Brandon, and where are you going from here on forward?
Yeah, there's a few things that I would love to do, man. I think one of the blessings of being exposed to so many different, I think, ideas, people, experiences, traveling, like I've picked up a lot of passions. And so like I really enjoy fashion. I've been working on like a little brand for my city of Bridgeport called Park City Kid, that kind of commemorates the different parks and also areas of the city. So I'm excited to be working on that. I have some creative direction that's going on with one of my mentees, actually, who's based out of New Haven. I am trying to work on something right now. I can't really speak to the whole idea, but essentially it would be a way to provide resources to overseas athletes, so that when this question is asked to them, they can be like, hey, I actually have a plan down packed. Or when they say, I'm going to be retiring in like 2 to 3 years, or they're thinking about it, they can say, okay, like I know what job I'm transitioning into, and that's going to be a seamless transition, as opposed to me having to go into like sales, or I don't know, into coaching, or just doing basketball training, which seems to be like the traditional trajectories for people who have had like these long careers. So I'm trying to work on something that can, kind of bolster and assist athletes being more empowered in their decision making for the future. Super long term, I would love to be mayor of my city of Bridgeport, Connecticut. I got a lot of love for my city. I really feel like it has a lot of potential that's just untapped. And my platform would be education, making sure that the youth have schools and teachers that care about them and are actually dedicated to making sure that they're going to succeed in the future, and helping them understand that there is life outside of Bridgeport. I'm from Bridgeport, Connecticut. I've been able to travel to 29 countries at this point in my life. And I think, some kids think that their world is literally a city block. And if I can expose them to, these different opportunities that are way further outside of the city than they can imagine, then I think that could be really helpful in them, making a decision that could change their life, or choosing a college or a job, which is kind of getting here. It's a lot more to life than our cities, and there's a lot more to life than basketball. So I think that's my, my desire, just to empower youth, athletes, people in general, to make decisions that they wouldn't have otherwise made. So that's kind of what's next. We'll see how that shapes out into like a job, but I think that's the goal.
Yeah, that's extraordinary, because I especially the point, not only the mentoring and allowing the opportunity, people like youth world being bigger than a block, because for a lot of people, that's a lot of youth, that's the reality, right? They never get the experience, travel to 29 countries, I've also got the experience to travel, not 29 countries. I think I've been to like more around like 7, but still I know I'm blessed to have that opportunity regardless. But I do love the fact that you one of your initiatives going forward. Number one, the mayor thing, dope. I don't know if I was part of Bridgeport, I lived there, I'd vote for you because I love the platform that you're running on and everything, because those education, all that you mentioned is extremely important. But the fact, Brandon, that you mentioned at giving athletes a tool and opportunity to know what they're going to do afterwards, because that speaks to me, because even though I didn't play professionally, I did play all the way through university. Basketball has always been a part of my life up until that point in 2020. And I remember the year I was graduating, my senior year, people asked me like, oh, yo, what are you doing? Like, I was some thinking about playing overseas. It would be a lower level. I was thinking about that, but I never really knew the answer to that question. And it didn't hit me till later on the season. It was kind of scary thinking about that reality. Like, yo, I'm going to have to do something after basketball. So I love that platform that you're trying to build, man. It really speaks volumes to me. But I gotta ask you another question in terms of we like to ask all our guests, and that is, if you gotta give advice to a younger youth who wants to be like Brandon Sherrod, man, when they grow up, or they want to be a professional hooper, they want to run for mayor one day. I don't know. What's your advice to them that you would give?
Yeah, I think one, stay humble. Like, I think humility is the key to like so much success, and like in that like really understand what it takes to achieve your goal too. Like, if you're getting into something, understand that goal requires a great deal of effort and energy. You know, for any good thing that you're working towards, it's going to require some sacrifice. It's going to require some blood, sweat, and tears. It's going to require some disappointment. And you can't be afraid of that. You really have to embrace that. And then during those periods of those periods of drought where you're like not getting to the point where you think you should be getting to, like, don't give up. You know, it would be, you know, I say this all the time. Like, even if I had worked hard in basketball, let's just use that as an example. Even if I had worked really hard and never got to the point that I got to today, it still wouldn't be for nothing. It still serves a purpose. So I guess my advice would be like, for the younger generation, like, stay humble, work hard, understand that it may not come overnight or at all, but the hard work serves a purpose, and it will show in some way. And it may not be the way that you think it should be, but it's still really important. So that's I think that's what I would say. And also, keep your eyes and ears open for opportunities that you wouldn't have originally expected to take. So I think that's also been like a story of my life. It's just I've been able to kind of like realize all these opportunities that I would have never thought I'd have. Like, did not think about going to Yale. Was able to capture the opportunity. Did not think about joining the Whiffenpoofs at all. When it came up, I was like, this is really cool. I should try this. Did not think I was going to be an overseas athlete. But again, worked hard towards that opportunity, even in the period of drought, was able to take hold of that. So just keep your horizons open and expose yourself to different areas and fields, because that's the way that you kind of come to a level of purpose and understanding of like where you're at and where you're going. So that's what I'd say.
Yeah. Man, that's fire, man. For all the young hoopers out there, man. Even if you just a young kid and out there listening, man, definitely, you know, take heed to Brandon's advice and you know, keep your eyes open and remain humble, man. But Brandon, man, this has been an amazing conversation, man. We really appreciate you, you know, coming on and sharing your gems, not only with us, but, you know, with the world, and helping these kids out there to be able to, you know, find themselves. And you got so much going on, man, from music to the state senate to everything, man. We're just proud of you, man. But I do want to ask, you know, is there any last things that, you know, you want to shout out, you want to say before we wrap up the pod here?
Oh yeah, for sure. First of all, shout out Bridgeport again. I gotta say it again. I love my city. Shout out to my sisters, Chelsea, Chayla, and China. I love y'all. And my parents, Rick and Sandy, gotta shout them out. And then shout out to my girlfriend Naima. Got to shout her as well because I'd be remiss if I didn't shout her out. That's my girl. So, and also real quick, the PG Sports. I got the hat on right now. Much love. I know you guys had Ireland on as well as another PG Sports athlete. And that's pretty much it, man. That's it. Just want to shout out the fam, my girl PG Sports in the city. It's all love.
Yes, sir. Well, I mean, those are all beautiful things to shout out, man. And Brandon, from the family, from Clutch Talk and myself, appreciate your time coming on. And like John said, sharing gems. And definitely you're if there's any example, there's like a dictionary definition of more than an athlete, you are that, man, because you're not just a basketball player, and folks need to understand and appreciate, because I know I do. So thank you for your time, man. Loved having you on.
Yes, sir, man. Yes, sir, man. Brandon, it's same thing, man. We just appreciate you being on, man. We love having you on, and we're always welcome on this platform, man. So for all the family out there, man, if you guys want to stay up to date with Brandon and everything that he's got going on, I'm going to drop his Instagram, all of his social medias in the description down below and right there in his little bubble, man. So make sure you go show Brandon some love. And make sure you listen to my guy's music, man, because you got music label, man. And if you in Bridgeport, you better vote for Brandon, or else we on you.
That's it. That's it.
That's it, man.
You already know.
Well, if that's it, then we out here, y'all. Clutch Talk out.
Peace.